cascading waters anomaly showed up on my hydrophone at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. And I almost missed it because I was too busy arguing with a coffee maker that had the lifespan of a dying fish. My name is Dr. Sebastian Krause. I'm 31. And I've spent the last 4 years monitoring the Willamette River's subsurface acoustic signatures from a laboratory that smells like algae and desperation. I'm German-American. My family fled the Rhineland in 1987 when the forecast models started predicting what climate change would do to European river systems. Spoiler, we were right. And now I get to watch it happen on a bigger continent. The hydrophone array had been planted at the base of the Bonneville Dam itself, embedded into the concrete foundation on the downstream side, recording water pressure variations, structural vibration, the acoustic fingerprint of a 94-year-old concrete structure that held back 161 billion gallons of water. I'd been monitoring it for 3 years without incident. Dams don't fail in America. Not in Oregon. Not on my watch. At 2:47 p.m., the equipment registered a frequency spike at 8.3 Hz that shouldn't have existed. I replayed it. Then again. Then I pulled up the pressure sensors, the seismic array, the USGS data in real time. My hands were shaking when I called my supervisor. We have a structural concern, I said, which is scientists speak for the dam is breaking, and we have maybe 6 to 12 hours before it kills 300,000 people. 40 minutes later, I was in a whitewater rescue center in Portland, dripping rain on linoleum, trying to explain subsurface fracture propagation to a guy named Lucas Morgan who looked like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. He was young, 24, maybe 25, with the kind of muscular build that comes from pulling drowning people out of rivers for a living. He had sharp cheekbones, dark blonde hair, and green eyes that were currently pointed at me with the intensity of someone who'd heard a lot of theories and believed approximately 0 of them. So you're saying the dam is making a weird noise? Lucas said slowly, and that means it's going to explode. Not explode. Fail structurally. The acoustic signature indicates subsurface fracturing in the concrete matrix, likely at the foundation interface. If the pattern continues to escalate, in English, duck. I hated being called duck. There are cracks in the dam's foundation. Water is finding them. When enough water gets through, the pressure differential will overcome structural capacity and the dam will breach. And how long? I didn't answer immediately because I didn't know. The honest answer was I can't predict this precisely, but I said, somewhere between 6 and 18 hours. The acoustic data shows escalating fracture velocity, but predicting structural failure in concrete it's not exact science. It's probability mathematics. And the probability is very, very high. Lucas leaned back in his chair. He had a coffee mug that said rescue or die, which seemed optimistic. And you came here because when that dam fails, it will release 161 billion gallons of water traveling at approximately 35 to 40 miles per hour down the Columbia River Gorge. It will destroy everything in its path: towns, infrastructure, people. The National Guard needs to begin evacuation procedures immediately. The Army Corps of Engineers needs to inspect the structure. And your whitewater rescue team needs to prepare for massive displacement. And okay, he was already standing, already moving. You need to call the county emergency coordinator, not me. I run rescue operations, not dams. The dam is in your operational zone, but it's not my problem until the county says it's my problem. And they don't say anything until someone with a title calls someone else with a title, and it filters down to my level. He was pulling on a jacket, waterproof, tactical, covered in patches. You're the scientist. You call. I'll wait. I wanted to scream. Instead, I called. The conversation took 40 minutes. Yes, my credentials were legitimate. Yes, I understood the implications of a false alarm. No, I couldn't be 100% certain without a structural inspection. Yes, but the acoustic data was unprecedented. The county emergency coordinator was polite and thorough and ultimately committed to monitoring the situation, which meant nothing. I was still on the phone when Lucas walked back in with someone else, a woman with the build of someone who'd also spent years pulling people out of water. This is Ray, he said. She runs the dive team. I told her what you said. She wants to look at the dam. The dam is a federal structure. Bonneville has public access to the tail race, Ray said. She was already checking equipment. We can do a surface and shallow inspection of the downstream face from the public area. I understood then. They weren't going to dive deep. They were going to look at the face of the dam where water was exiting, the place where structural failure would show first. That would still be dangerous if the structure is actually failing. We're whitewater rescue specialists, Lucas said flatly. Dangerous is our baseline. You don't understand, I said. If water pressure is forcing through a fractured interface, if the foundation is compromised, the hydraulic forces alone will, then we better look fast, Ray said. You coming or just catastrophizing? I went. The drive to Bonneville Dam takes 45 minutes from downtown Portland. I sat in the back of their rescue truck while Lucas drove, and Ray explained whitewater rescue protocols as if I cared about anything other than the clock counting down to structural failure. How sure are you about this? Ray asked, checking equipment in the back. The acoustic data is unambiguous, I said. But predicting the exact moment of failure in a system this complex, there's uncertainty. The fracture could be arrested. The pressure could redistribute. I'm giving you 6 to 18 hours, but it could be faster. Or it could buy us more time. So you're very concerned. I'm terrified, she smiled. Good. That means you're not an idiot. The tail race at Bonneville, the area downstream where water exits, was mostly empty. March in Oregon isn't peak tourism. We suited up in the back of the truck while rain hammered the metal. Lucas was checking dive computers with meticulous precision, his expression concentrated in a way I hadn't seen before. Up close, when he wasn't being aggressively dismissive, I could see the competence underneath. We're going to inspect the spillway face and the foundation interface, Ray said, pulling on her wetsuit. We're looking for visible cracks, seepage patterns, anything that confirms structural compromise. Depths won't exceed 30 meters. We stay in controlled conditions. We abort if conditions change. Understood. This is insane, I said. Completely. Lucas agreed. He was putting on fins. But you're terrified. We're professionals. And your data suggests we have less than 18 hours. So we move. He said it matter-of-factly, like volunteering to dive a potentially failing dam was just another Tuesday at work. And maybe for him it was. They entered the water like they were born to it, smooth, controlled, precise. I watched from the safety boat, radio in hand, watching the water temperature gauge and the oxygen levels and the structural integrity data streaming across my laptop screen. 12 minutes down. The acoustic anomaly was escalating. Talk to me, I said into the radio. Base pool is clear. Ray's voice came back, muffled by water and technology. Visual inspection of the spillway face. Looking for seepage. What are you seeing? Water coming out of the concrete, Lucas said. His voice was calmer than mine. Not heavy flow, but definitely there. The foundation interface is weeping. Sebastian, your data is right. Can you see structural cracks? Yes. Hairline fractures running perpendicular to the spillway face. Multiple patterns. This is real. I felt my chest tighten. Confirmation was supposed to feel validating. Instead, it felt like watching a bomb tick toward zero. You need to get out, I said. Conditions could change rapidly. If hydraulic forces increase, we're ascending now, Ray said. Staying controlled. No rapid movement. The ascent took 8 minutes, slow, measured, following decompression protocol even though it was minimal at these depths. When they broke the surface, both were breathing steadily, moving with professional precision back to the boat. We need to get to county emergency, Lucas said the moment he pulled off his mask. Water streamed down his face. Now, this time, people listened. The county emergency coordinator, a woman named Patricia Chen, had my data projected on a screen in her office within an hour. She had Lucas and Ray's video footage pulled up. She had a structural engineer on a conference call who kept saying phrases like catastrophic failure risk and precautionary evacuation. By 6 p.m., the decision was made. The Army Corps of Engineers would inspect Bonneville Dam immediately. The lower Columbia River zone would be under evacuation alert. If the inspection confirmed structural failure, the spillway gates would be opened fully to reduce the reservoir pressure, buying time while the public was evacuated. The evacuation corridor runs through your rescue zone, Patricia told Lucas. If the dam fails despite reduced reservoir pressure, you're coordinating the flood rescue. Your team, any available personnel, all of it. This is now a federal emergency, Lucas didn't hesitate. "We're ready." But he looked at me when he said it. The next 18 hours became the most organized chaos of my life. The Army Corps of Engineers inspection team arrived by helicopter at dawn. They'd already concluded that the acoustic data warranted immediate evacuation. The structural failure was real. The spillway gates were opened at maximum capacity 121,500 cubic feet per second flowing downstream, draining the reservoir as fast as they safely could. I stayed in the Emergency Coordination Center. Lucas was everywhere coordinating boat placement, briefing rescue teams, checking equipment, checking water levels, checking weather. Every time I saw him, he looked more terrified and more committed, which somehow made me trust him more. "Your data was right," he said to me at 2 a.m. when we were both running on coffee and adrenaline. We were alone in the corridor outside the briefing room. "I came in here thinking you were some academic doom scrolling through sensor data. But you were right about all of it." "I didn't want to be right," I said. "I wanted to be wrong. I wanted my instruments to be broken." "Yeah, I get that." He leaned against the wall. Without all the motion, I could see how exhausted he was. "My brother drowned when I was 17. Stupid decision. Drunk. River conditions he didn't understand. My parents said it was an accident. I knew it was human error meeting environmental conditions." He looked at me. "I learned to be better than water conditions could kill. That's why I do this job. So other people don't end up like Marcus." I understood then. The recklessness, the intensity, the refusal to hesitate when people needed help. It wasn't bravado. It was someone trying to save people because he couldn't save his brother. My family left Germany because climate models predicted the Rhineland would have catastrophic flooding within 50 years. I said, "We came to America thinking we were safe from environmental collapse." I became a hydrologist because I wanted to understand the systems that killed the place where I was born. And now I'm watching it happen on a different continent, and I can't stop it. I can only measure it. Lucas was quiet for a moment. "You can do more than that. You're doing it. You caught this. You're stopping people from dying in that flood, maybe, if the evacuation works, if people listen, if the spillway gates hold, if a lot of things," he interrupted. "But right now, you did the part that was yours to do. Now let me do the part that's mine." At 6 a.m. Thursday, the inspection team confirmed catastrophic structural failure. The concrete matrix was compromised beyond repair. The reservoir pressure reduction was buying time, but eventually maybe 24 hours, maybe 48, the remaining structure would fail. By 7 a.m., the evacuation alert went to full mobilization. 250,000 people had to leave. By 8 a.m., Lucas and his team were on the water. I watched from the emergency center as rescue boats moved into position along the evacuation corridor. Lucas was in the lead boat, navigating areas he knew like his own body, coordinates streaming in real time from county dispatch. "Talk to me," I said into the radio headset they'd given me. "What are you seeing?" "Water level dropping in the reservoir as the gates stay open," Lucas reported. His voice was calm, focused. "Current in the gorge is strong but manageable. We're pulling out priority evacuations, elderly residents who refuse to leave, people with mobility issues. Getting them now. Be careful," I said, which was stupid. "Always am," he replied, which was a lie. The next 4 hours were a sequence of rescue operations that blurred into each other. People refusing to leave. Families isolated on higher ground. A group of teenagers who thought they could outrun the water. Lucas and his team moving constantly, precisely, saving people one by one. At noon Thursday, the county emergency coordinator pulled me aside. "Your data is trending," she asked, showing me the latest acoustic readings. "Worsening," I said. "The fracture network is expanding. Based on the escalation rate, I'm estimating failure between 24 and 36 hours. But that's a range, not a prediction. The system is too chaotic for precision. We need precision. I can't give you something I can't measure," I said. "What I can tell you is that the structure is failing. It's getting worse. Eventually, it will fail completely. But exactly when? That's not science. That's probability." She was already making calls. The dam failed at 6:23 a.m. on Friday. Not a catastrophic explosion, a grinding failure. The concrete matrix finally surrendering to pressure it had held for 94 years. The first crack sounded like a gunshot through the structure. Then another. Then a deep, Grinding sound as concrete gave way to water. Water didn't explode out. It poured out, finding its path down the Columbia River Gorge like a returning tide. The flood hit the gorge at 6:47 a.m. Lucas's team was positioned on higher ground, ready for rescue operations, but the water came differently than we'd prepared for. The spillway gates jammed slightly when the structure began failing, releasing water in irregular pulses instead of steady flow. The gorge channeled the water into a surge that was worse than a steady flood would have been. When the surge passed through the rescue zone, it carried debris, whole trees, fragments of houses, cars. 4 people in a rescue boat got capsized. One was Lucas. I heard it through the radio. Asterisk boat 2 is capsized. Swimmer in the current. Lucas, respond. Lucas, respond. My hands were shaking. I was on my feet before I realized I'd stood up. This is Rescue 1. Lucas's voice came through, strained. I'm in the water. I'm okay. Caught by the current, but I'm swimming. I'm swimming toward there's someone. There's someone else in the water. I've got them. I've got her. Of course he did. Of course Lucas Morgan was in a raging flood saving someone instead of saving himself. Ray's voice came through sharp and clear. We're coming around. Hold position. Hold. What happened next happened in about 60 seconds but felt like hours. Ray coordinating with another boat. Lucas keeping his head above water, keeping someone else's head above water, fighting the current. The rope deployment, the grab, the haul. When they pulled him out, Lucas was second. The woman he'd grabbed, a 67-year-old who'd been too stubborn to evacuate, was first. I realized I'd been holding my breath when Lucas coughed water and announced, I'm good. I'm good. Keep working. By 10 a.m. Friday, the flood had crested. By 2 p.m., rescue operations were concluding. By 6 p.m., the county had declared the emergency stabilized. 3 people dead. 47 people rescued. 12,000 people displaced. 2 towns damaged. 1 94-year-old dam destroyed. And 1 German-American hydrologist who couldn't believe that whitewater rescue technician had survived grabbing a drowning woman in a flood. Lucas found me in the emergency coordination center where I was still processing data, still cataloging failure points, still unable to stop working. You saved those people, he said. He was wrapped in a thermal blanket, still soaked, shivering slightly. Your data, your call. You caught the failure. Your team pulled people from a flood, I said. You dragged someone from 40-mile-per-hour current because you told us to be ready. He sat down next to me, too tired to maintain any of his earlier dismissiveness. I came into that rescue center thinking you were a catastrophizing academic. I spent 2 days watching you be right about most of it. And then I spent this morning pulling people out of a flood that you'd predicted, give or take some uncertainty. I smiled despite everything. My prediction range was 6 to 18 hours. You were off by approximately 30 minutes. That's within acceptable error for a chaotic system. Very scientific of you to accept defeat. I'm German. We're efficient about admitting when we're wrong. He turned to look at me. We were close enough that I could see he had a cut on his cheekbone from debris, close enough that I could smell river water and desperation on him. I'm not good at this, he said. Whatever this is. Relationships, feelings, admitting that someone matters. I work. I rescue. I don't do this. Neither do I said. I measure things. I predict outcomes. I don't do human connection. So what are we doing? Having a terrible conversation about our emotional deficits while you're still soaking wet. Yeah, probably. He smiled. Is this where I'm supposed to ask if you want to get coffee? That's extraordinarily cliched. I'm a rescue tech, not a romantic. I work with what I've got, which is broken ribs, river water contamination, and exhaustion-induced decision-making. Pretty much, yeah. I leaned forward and kissed him. Just like that. No build-up, no permission, no safety in numbers. Just 2 people who'd spent 36 hours in controlled chaos together, watching each other be competent and terrified and brave. When I pulled back, Lucas was staring at me. That was unexpected. He said, I'm German. We're efficient. You just kissed me in an emergency coordination center. There's no rule against it. I'm soaking wet. I noticed. He laughed, surprised and genuine. Okay, coffee then? When I can feel my legs again. Epilogue. 3 months later, summer hit Portland like the weather remembered how to be pleasant. The Willamette River was flowing normally for a post-dam failure scenario. The reservoir was being managed by temporary spillway systems. I'd been hired as a consultant on the new structural monitoring protocols for the remaining dams in the system. Lucas and I were sitting on a bench at Waterfront Park, watching the river flow, occasionally saying nothing. "I still don't understand how you do what you do," I said. "Charge into dangerous situations with no guarantee of survival. I still don't understand how you do what you do," he replied. "Predict disasters with such certainty. Don't you ever want to be wrong?" I wanted to be wrong about the dam. "That's how I know I'm right." "Yeah." He took my hand. "His were calloused, work-worn, real. That's why you matter. That's why we matter. Because you measure what's coming, and I know how to move when it arrives." That's unexpectedly poetic for someone who said they're not romantic. "I've been practicing." He pulled me closer. 3 months of dating a German hydrologist will do that. We sat there in the Portland sun, watching the river that had almost killed him, that had made us both see clearly what mattered. The water kept moving, always flowing towards some destination. Just like us. Sometimes the best love stories aren't the ones that start with coffee and smiles. Sometimes they start with panic and acoustic anomalies and one person believing another when no one else will. Sometimes they start in the emergency and build their way towards something real.